find your purpose early. If you find it early, you can never really retire and say, oh, I have nothing else to do. Because that purpose, it is just changing the format. And then for some of us, work is really just a way to finance purpose. I also recommend people to be disengaged from thinking of themselves in terms of their professions. That can be dangerous because when you are laid off and you're an accountant and you are laid off, you feel so useless, you are gutted, you are you are just so distraught and emotionally destroyed. Why? Because in your mind you are this job. Make a plan as quickly as you start working, even to the 18-year-olds, and make your retirement plan. Work on it. Don't want to get to 50, you have no pension, you have nothing, and you become destitute. And the big thing which comes up as you grow older is the medical bill. Don't be silly and say, for me, I'm strong, I never go sick, I'll be prayed for, and be realistic, be practical. I know a lot of people who went too early simply because they didn't have, medical support. Smart people. Some people who had worked tirelessly, given to everybody. But when it was their turn and they were sick, nobody gave them a second look. People just going to say, oh, sorry, we are praying for you. Yeah. Property. Buy that house. Develop it into 7 rooms, 8 rooms, and what if you have your small cottage at the back with 2 rooms. You can stay there and collect the rents in here and survive and have a decent life. You are not bothering your children or some cousin or somebody you sent to school and say, I sent you to school. Send money here. I sacrificed. I couldn't buy even my own suit because of you. Now now you are bitter already. And that bitterness begins to eat you up. And it can destroy your health.
Meaningful carriers now. Take the time to take your destiny in your hands now. With meaningful carriers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gutu. Such a pleasure to have you once again.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right. So today we want to talk about your retirement. I mean, this is something many people and a lot of us can only dream of. So we want to hear it from somebody who has arrived in terms of the retirement phase, who has lived through it and who is still living through the retirement phase. So I guess the first question is, how do you know when it's time to walk away? And when you look at your own retirement, what was behind your decision to retire?
Coming from the civil service, it has always been, the rules are clear. And, 65 is the retirement age. Of course, there's early retirement at 55. And I think generally also in the industry around 65, you have to retire. But it depends sometimes from profession to profession. I know now that governments and countries around the world are increasing the age of retirement, some to 70. Some of it is actually coming from the economic pressures. The governments are now pressed to pay the pension, and they don't have the money. So they are kicking the can down the road from 65 to 70. The United Nations also, the retirement was 62. They pushed it to 65. And we're some of the first beneficiaries of that. I guess with that kind of mindset, you already have an idea that one day I will leave, one day I'll retire. And the good thing is 65, because of modern science and medicine and other things, 65, you're still, able, you can walk, you can do your things, just if you're healthy, of course. So for me, it's a good place to say, you know what, I am withdrawing from this and maybe moving into that. So generally it's a rule-based, But of course, situations will determine if you don't have good health, then you probably go for early retirement, which is 55. But if you have good health, you go all the way to 65. Others continue to work, of course. They just switch from one job to the other.
Amazing. So I'm curious now, what is retirement actually like? Has anything surprised you at all? Or has anything changed or something came up more than you expected? How is retirement like? Please tell us.
So for me, this notion of retirement is not something which I'm really like worried or concerned or like, oh, so what am I going to do when, what? No. I've always been a busy person. In fact, I've carried two professions at the same time in most of my life. I've been very active in church, business, either as a treasurer, as a deacon, as an elder, and then I went for Bible training, so I've always been doing that apart from my profession, of course. So I am a very active person, and I don't have time to just lounge around and lazy around and say, oh, no, now I don't have anything to do. In fact, the church work here in USA, AFM USA, is picking up. So in terms of what retirement looks like now, there's not much slowing down. I am busy. Also, I've always wanted to do a doctorate and progress with my studies, including the CPA, which is the Certified Public Account, which has eluded me for my lifetime. My son beat me to it. He became a CPA before I did. So I've always wanted to do either a CPA or a doctorate. So in my final year of retirement, I enrolled for the doctorate. I did it for 3 months and found out that it was impossible for me to do it while I'm working. It was so demanding in terms of attention, time, assignments, group work, what a project. And I went back and I said, oh, slow down, I'm deferring. I have to do this when I'm retiring. So I've jumped into that, and I'm so glad. Thankfully, this is my third and final year. So just to say that I am busy either with my studies or with church work or with, I also do some pastime. I'm a farmer at heart, so I have a small garden, and I also do, some some gardening in the backyard in these big pots and stuff, and so always busy. And of course, when you are a pastor and a Christian, studying the Bible is a lifelong program. You can never say, oh, now I don't have anything to do. There's always more to learn, to support other people as well, and to do that.
Amazing. So in terms of, would you say keeping yourself busy is how you're coping with retirement? Is that the formula then?
Definitely. You have to find yourself something to do. I believe God wired us in such a way. He put purpose at the center of our lives. And so if you lose that, life becomes meaningless. Purpose is what gives meaning to life and keeps you sane, even emotionally and psychologically. You are kept engaged. You feel needed, and you feel you still have something to do. And of course, part of this, in my view, my legacy. Yeah, it's time to solidify that and to give back. So that includes even studying more, been finding other things to do. And of course, as a pastor, I've got more work than what I can do. In fact, I'm looking for other people to help me in that role. So yes, you have to keep engaged. It's helpful.
Amazing. So somebody is stuck in their career. There's this notion of early retirement or kind of late or the ordinary retirement, which if somebody is stuck, in terms of thinking about making such a bold career move, what would you say to them as somebody who is already retired? Should people delay retiring or take the opportunity at the earliest availability? What would you say?
I always think that in your life, find your purpose early. If you find it early, you can never really retire and say, oh, I have nothing else to do, because that purpose, it is just changing the format. And for some of us, work is really just a way to finance purpose, right? So I'll just be switching work from one kind of work to another, but I'm still engaged full time in my purpose. Yes, I may retire from preaching on the pulpit, but at heart, I will always be serving God in one form or the other, and so, yeah. Well, one has to, if you feel stuck, I think go back to the drawing board, and it depends. I mean, people have different ways of reflecting, but really reflect, meditate, find time by yourself with others. Think of what is it that brings fulfillment to me in life? What do I want to be known for or acknowledged for when I'm gone? When this space is vacant and is empty and they think of Jerry, how do I want to be thought of? And so if you do that, then you have a purpose, you work on it. I also recommend people to be disengaged from thinking of themselves in terms of their professions. That can be dangerous, because when you are laid off and you're an accountant and you are laid off, you feel so useless, you are gutted, you are you are just so distraught and emotionally destroyed. Why? Because in your mind you are this job.
Right.
We are more than a job. When I was promoted to accountant general, it's only afterwards that I realized that, wow, that was a big position, but it never got to my head to say, well, the day I left, I never, got sick and say, oh, I'm no longer this. No, I just moved to another job, which was a technical manager, which in terms of titles was very low, right? Yeah, but in a funny way, I probably got 3 times my salary, which I was getting. So in one way or the other, you get compensated. When I became CEO, other people are like, wow, CEO is like this. But it never really got to my head to own me. So when I was done with that time, I simply moved out, to become a coordinator at the United Nations. Before I was promoted to chief of section and all the other stuff. But disengage from titles, because they can be dangerous. And when you are moved out of that station, and if your purpose plan in your life, in your mind is not clear, then you think, oh, I'm useless because now I cannot be an accountant. Now I am not doing the books. Now I'm not doing the double entry. That is nonsense. I mean, there are many other things. I am a farmer at heart, as I told you. So I'm into many things such that nothing should capture me and then imprison me. So this notion of being stuck is in the mind, right? And also it's a trap. And then you stop developing yourself, you stop looking for purpose, and you just focus in the accounting. And if somebody with power just dislodges you out of that, you're devastated. Whereas if you hold it as, for me, all the jobs I did, they were just a financing scheme to the next thing, to serve, right? To enjoy life, to be a true father. to my children, to be a true husband to my wife, to be a good brother to my siblings, and to be a good son to my parents and my uncles and aunts. All those things, they bring meaning and purpose, to me, such that if one of the it's like on the chessboard, is one of the pieces is moved, it doesn't destabilize and destroys the whole game. The game continues. You just need to recalibrate and come back and then be able to move. So I would urge, nowadays, again, they actually say after every 5 years, your profession will receive a lot of shaking. So the thing to do now for those who are engaged in one profession or the other is to keep moving, keep studying where that profession is going, keep studying your interest. Do you want to go with it, or do you want to branch out into something else? Before that time comes and they say, I'm so sorry, sir, we have to lay you off because now the company cannot. Don't wait for that. Always have that perception, that view, to have your own plan. You see, we are addressed by Masiwa. I will never forget this billionaire guy. 1999. He came to give us a talk called Against All Odds. And he shared his life story. And he says the only person who cares about your life, your career, and whatever is your headmaster in the primary school where you went to. He said nobody cares. You have to take the bull by the horns. You have to take your life and carry it and develop it and come up with what you want. Don't be expecting somebody else, Mr. Employer, Mr. So-so, to look out for you. No. You look out for number one. You look out for yourself. And therefore you work with it so that you don't get stuck. If you get stuck, it's time to lock yourself somewhere else and then, go through that process. Some of us pray. That's the time to pray. If you are not religious, I don't know who isn't religious. If you are not, it's time to just find out whatever way, method or mechanism. But do that. Get other people. I have maybe 5 or 6 people who I'm close to throughout my life. One of them is Dr. Comfort. We talk about life. And we talk about things, and we give each other ideas and feedback and what have you. And then one of them is my pastor, Dr. Erasmus. We talk, and now, Pastor Mashobo, we talk and they give us ideas and views, and Pastor Chipere in the UK, we talk, they give us ideas and perspectives, and I have people in my own church too, and some of them are not from Zimbabwe, and so that helps me it keeps my mind and my perspective fresh. New ideas, and so that I don't get stuck. These people will help you to get you unstuck. These people will say, you've got a very good gift. Like you, I would say, you're not even getting into writing books. You are so good on this thing. So when you're in one profession, you get stuck, make sure you remember all the other skills which you have and see whether you can make something out of them. You don't have to be an employee. You can start your own business nowadays. That's the thing. And it's so easy with the internet, with everything else. The cost of starting some initiatives is now very low and with a very huge outturn.
Wow, that's so profound and so deep. I think I picked 3 things from what you said. There is purpose, then there is identity, to say you are not your profession or you are not your job. Then skills. You mentioned something about skills as well. But a quick question on the purpose side of things. I've seen a lot of motivational speakers, a lot of seminars, workshops, people talking about purpose.
Yes.
But in your own experience as somebody who has done it all throughout the career and many other things, what's the quickest way for somebody to find their purpose?
Let me correct you. I haven't done it all. I'm still on my journey. It's unfolding. But your purpose is, I remember teaching and preaching at some point. It comes in different ways. There are people who are prophesied for or told by somebody, and they come up believing that, and that becomes their purpose, right? I remember one of my cousins, and my aunt was pregnant with that. And one of these guys came to pray for him, and he says, "Oh, I see you, mom. You're carrying this boy. Oh, this boy is going to be a big black watcher. Black watcher. You know what black watcher meant? It means a black watcher, a policeman. That was what they were called in the colonial days. And lo and behold, my cousin became that. He became senior assistant commissioner in the police before he retired. But this was prophesied before he was born. And so when his mother was raising him, he told him and he prayed with him and he became that, right? This is the same thing with Moses. Right? Moses was prophesied, right? And he became that, and he became the liberator, the leader who took Israel out of Egypt. So, and of course, Jesus, Mary was told, you call him Jesus because he shall set the people free. He shall forgive people's sins, right? So that's the first set. Jeremiah, of course, he was told, I've ordained you a prophet. While you were before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you, and I ordained you to be. So that's the first set where purpose is actually foretold. And when you grow up, your parents speak into you in connection with that. So that solidifies, you internalize it. That's easy. Now, there's a group of people who stumble against it. I would give an example of Paul. Paul was around 40, but he was chasing Christians and imprisoning them and putting them away and so forth, until Jesus had to knock him off the horse, fell to the ground. And then he says, "Who are you, Lord?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm Jesus whom you are persecuting." And then he said, "I'm going to send you on a mission to the Gentiles." He discovered his purpose when he was in his 40s. Meanwhile, he had been chasing the wrong thing. Right. So somehow God has made a way that you may not know what your purpose is, but somewhere you meet with a situation and an incident and an occasion where it's like your eyes are open, the epiphany, right? You're like, wow. You get the full realization what your purpose should be. And Paul realized that he was the special apostle to the Gentiles, right? And so he redirected all his efforts and everything else to prosecute his purpose, right? And then the third group is where people help you to find your purpose throughout by their comments and some by mentorship, and also in one way or the other speaking into your life. So I am kind of that person where my parents spoke to me, about purpose, and my mom had a long story. 3 years of age, I died. My mom said, and my son is not dying. Put me on a back, went to Pastor John Gwanzura, called Vachihari, who prayed for me, and lo and behold, resurrected. And so my mother always believed that God saved me for a purpose, and that purpose was ministry. And while I did everything else, that was there in my heart that I ought to serve God in one way or the other. And of course, over time, I've had mentors and people, and I've had confirmations of even from people who don't know me, telling me, oh, this and that and that and that, including the likes of Maimra P and other people. They don't know me from anywhere. They just meet me for the first time and they have a long, and lo and behold, most of the things which they said have come to pass. So in one way or the other, you get feedback from people. So take note of that feedback and also listen to your heart. What is it that gives you satisfaction and joy? Don't think about the money. Right? That's where most people get lost. They say, oh, doing this profession, oh, I can never make money out of this. I want to do this. So they do something which is like against the grain of how God has wired us. Find that area of interest. I know in societies and communities, there are some professions which are frowned upon, especially when I grew up. If you wanted to be a musician, people would laugh at you. They say, what? You can't make it, because the conditions were not conducive and everything else. And also the people who were known to be in that industry were just drunkards and all kinds of, womanizers and impregnating this and that and a loose life. But, when God puts that dream in you, find a way to nurture it and bring it, and God will not give you something which you will not support. So for me, ministry and giving back and preaching is really my purpose, but I had to find accounting as a base to sustain myself. Just like Paul was a tent maker. He had to do some work. And, unlike the Peters and the John who left their fishing business and followed Jesus and became full-time pastors, Paul never did that. He kept on making tents, working, supporting his ministry. I'm more of that model than the full-time and leaving your work and everything else and just becoming a preacher. Man, it's good. If God has called you to that, I'm not criticizing that, but God has not called me to that for sure.
Wow. Amazing. This is quite deep, very philosophical as well. But thank you for that. So let's go back to the other question around retirement. So there is the question around pension and long-term financial planning. I think many people never think about it maybe until it's too late. What advice would you have, or rather, why does it matter so early? And why should people think about it? And what should they start thinking about, regardless of whatever stage they are towards retirement?
Okay, so the thing I really need to share with everyone is make a plan as quickly as you start working, even to the 18-year-olds, and make your retirement plan, work on it. The good thing now is it's not just the government with this huge plan. No, everyone, you can always find an outfit to work with who can do here in the US 401k or other schemes where you pay. It doesn't have to be big. It can start small. And a lot of organizations, once you are in that, they also contribute. So it's not just your income going in there, but your employer also putting money in there. If you're running a business, make sure you put something on the side, no matter how small, but the issues are about consistency and diligence. You get there. You don't want to get to 50, you have no pension, you have nothing, and you become destitute. Also, I know in some countries where the pension is gutted, it's meaningless, it's nothing. I would urge and recommend that you work on a scheme to get assets, right? Assets are your investments. That's what is going to keep you. I was surprised when I was reading Miles Monroe, one of his articles. He says, get land. He says, you can never prosper if you don't own a piece of land, right? So So get land, whether it's a house, whether it's a plot, whether it's a farm, whether get some real estate in your plans for retirement. So if it is late, that's what I would advise. Try as much as you can to get your assets, because your assets will keep you. If you have one or two houses, they are rented out, that can substitute a pension, right? You collect your rentals, you go buy your groceries, and the big thing which comes up as you grow older is the medical bill.
Right.
That if you can get into a medical plan, that's an absolute non-negotiable thing. Don't be silly and say, for me, I'm strong. I never go sick. I'll be prayed for. And be realistic, be practical. As we grow older, our bodies also, they become short in many respects, and you need medical attention. I can tell you, I know a lot of people who went too early simply because they didn't have, medical support. Smart people. Some people who had worked tirelessly, given to everybody. But when it was their turn and they were sick, nobody gave them a second look. People just couldn't say, "Oh, sorry, we are praying for you." Yeah. Even James says, when someone is hungry, don't pray for them, give them food. If they are cold, you say, don't pray for them, give them a blanket or something to work. Be practical. That's precisely what I'm saying. So if you start early, make sure you get a pension scheme, a good pension scheme, get into it. And as much as possible, get into a scheme where your employer is also contributing. If you are not able, get into financial assets, insurance policies and other instruments, if you are good at that, which can substitute your pension. If you are not, get into real estate, property. And when I say property, it doesn't have to be like an island. No, a house in Glenora. Buy that house, develop it into 7 rooms, 8 rooms, and what have you. You have your small cottage at the back with 2 rooms. You can stay there and collect the rents in here and survive and have a decent life. You are not bothering your children or some cousin or somebody you sent to school and say, I sent you to school. Send money here. I sacrificed. I couldn't buy even my own suit because of you. Now now you are bitter already. And that bitterness begins to eat you up. And it can destroy your health. So please, whatever you do, we know Jesus can come at any time, but we don't know when he's coming. So you have to prepare. You have to prepare like somebody who's going to live like 120 years. And you go at 80, you go well. In my hospital, I can pay for my bills. My kids don't have to sweat and start selling their things and then having issues with their wives who say, this old man is just wasting our money and whatever. No. Prepare to the best of your ability and consult others. The United Nations is very good because it is a retirement training program. So I attended it like 3 years before my retirement. I kept attending every year. So they give you tips, they give you, a wide perspective, how you should think about it and where to go and what have you. There are other countries where, you go there as a retiree from the UN, you don't pay any tax. I think it's Greece and Croatia and other countries. You don't pay tax. So those are things which you think of, but of course you are who you are. Some of us are like, nah, I'm not leaving my kids. I'm not leaving my, so you want to go where you want to go, right? But you get the options that this is what you want to do. And just plan as if no one is going to help you. Even if you have your children, plan as if your children will just do the minimal thing. Just coming to see you and say, how are you doing, Bambo? And what is it that we can do? And can we do it? But the bulk of the thing, you are independent financially. and you can look after yourself, and you've got a solid medical support. Because without that, it's a hassle. It's a hassle. And of course, there are many things which I'm thinking now, which I'm like, wow, if I had known then, one of the things is you have to prepare for your children's education. It came as a big hit for us. By the time I retired, I think I had close to like 250,000 in loans for my kids. But, I took a lump sum and cleared all of that and what have you. But it's something which you want to work on. You want to be smart. So with the last child of ours, we were now smarter. We bought him a car. We sent him to a community college. And then after the second year, then you send him to a full-time. But by then he's also working and also making sure that the bill is very small compared to what we paid for these other 3 kids who started. We sent them to boarding. They were not working, even provided a car and everything else. It was like they were living in California or in a hotel. So you also have to be smart and work with them. And train them to also work while they go to school, where there's opportunity. Of course, in other countries, that's not possible. But where there's opportunity, do that so that you don't end up with a huge bill and you don't know what to do. You've got your mortgage, you've got these education loans, you've got the car loan, and no, it's not good. Those things you need to be you need a plan to be working and clearing them as much as you can. If you can clear your mortgage at 40, do so. Get it out of the way because it's one of the biggest expenses you will ever have. Vehicles, don't buy any new car. Just go for a good used car, and you get it at like 25% or 50% of the value. You buy a brand new car, yeah, sure, but it's going to be everything around your neck for the next 5, even 10 years, and then you get some people who are this silly. After they finish this car, there's a new model on the market, they jump for it, they get into another loan. And please, for what? Just if you are a Toyota guy, just find a nice used Toyota car at a third of the price, pay it off as quickly as you can. Then you are able then to save and to do other things, to buy those other assets, and don't be into all this fancy nonsense, bling bling. It's not, I'm not saying don't be, looking classy and all that. Do that, but it should be proportionate to what you get, and it should never be a competition. So I saw this one with this, want this. So they've got this, they say, but I must move. Now, for me, I've never been a guy who is competing with anybody else out there. No, I just have my own life, and thankfully, my wife is also, that we spoke, and I always share my views that, listen, I'm not into all this fancy stuff. I would rather finance orphans who are out there than just go running and looking for another brand new car for what? So all those things, but these are mindsets and philosophies of people. It depends with your philosophy and your mindset. Some people were born and they just rushed into this competition. So their entire life is all about competition and comparing themselves with others. I am thankfully God has redeemed me, saved me from that foolishness.
Wow. Amazing. No, this is quite deep and very practical. One last question, I guess, from a Zimbabwean perspective in the diaspora. I think many of us, when they look at properties and investing for the future, people are stuck with maybe 3 options. One, to say, should I buy a property where I am here overseas? Should I buy a property in town in Zimbabwe? Or should I actually build in my rural village? So there are 3 kind of directions that Zimbabweans could take. I'm just curious for somebody who has already worked and retired, and I'm sure as you were working, you almost had those thoughts as well to say, okay, which one do I prioritize? How do I get it? But you are retired now. What has been true and what has not been proven to be true in terms of the prioritization of those 3 choices, if I should say?
Right. So it depends. Do you want to go back or you don't want to go back? Because there are some who are just made up their minds, I'm not going back there. So if you're not going back there, for me, it doesn't make sense to buy anything there because it will be a headache to you to manage it. But if you want to go back there, and in any case, I never recommend anybody to be a renter. No. Maybe if you have a 2-year contract and you're not sure, and yeah, fine, start with renting. But if you get anything 5 years or more of work, get a house, an apartment, or a property because they appreciate in value and you can always get your money back. We lived in South Africa for 3 years. Right? We bought a house in our first year. By the time we left it, it appreciated so much. We, of course, had to sell it because I didn't think I was going to manage it properly. We sold it, paid the loan, remained with a balance. So it's to your advantage. Whereas if you are renting, that money is just going to waste, man. It's going to waste the day you leave. That's it. Nothing, no equity in it. So I am a firm believer in buying property, especially where I had a 3-year contract in South Africa, but in that first year, we had already bought a beautiful house and the value appreciated, and therefore that's my recommendation. If you have no thought of going back, buy where you are. Wherever you are, I believe you need a home, but also be reasonable, right? If I intend to go back to Zimbabwe, then I need to get properties there. But still here, I would buy not a mansion, not a palace, not in those, no. I find something which is manageable, right? So that I'm not wasting money paying rent and that I'm building up my equity. And try and pay that, be as diligent as you can. Try and reduce, if you take advantage of all these other tricks which they talk about, including doubling your mortgage payments and all that, you find that a 30-year mortgage can be paid within 10 to 13 years, right? So use all that in there. I am a villager at heart. I believe in building in your village, and therefore, and the good thing with the village is you can come up with a plan which won't be as expensive as in the city. The materials and of course of good quality. You don't want just to do something which is fall down in two years or so. Something of good quality, but it will be cheap. And of course in the cities, that's where the renters are. Buy something in the city, and as I said before, you can buy it in Glenora. Buy a core house, and then start developing it over time. And you should be fine. So depends with where you want to end up, and if you want to end up back there where your country of origin, obviously you need to work a plan to buy properties there. But it doesn't have to be like in the upscale. You can start somewhere small, and then core houses and build it gradually. You can sell, buy in another one, keep moving. If you can get land somewhere, get it. There are many things which you can do, many other projects which you can do. And for you in the UK, if they sell those council properties, go for them, buy it, and also if not yet, so try and get into a council property because they are reasonable, they are cheap. Get in there, but while you are in there, don't just get carried away and forget. No, don't. Always think, always have a plan of where you want to go and where you want to end up.
Wow, that's so amazing and empowering. Thank you so much. I think one last question for me is, when reflecting on your career, you started off, you worked in the UN for almost 20 years, you worked in the civil service in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, and at some point in the US. When you reflect on your career as a whole, what sort of legacy do you think you have left from your professional standpoint?
As I said, some of my highlights in the government of Zimbabwe, or rather in the Ministry of Finance, I left the legacy of modernization. As I said, I got the first desktop computer to do our financial statements. and then gradually got more and more computers, and that spilled off to the ministries and so forth. Very helpful. So I've always been someone who wants to leverage of technology or modern ways of doing things and so forth. Also, the legacy of being a true professional and diligent, being diligent. Work, apply yourself to your profession. Also, be a lifelong learner, right? And it's amazing, God will always, if you want something, God will bring it to you. I went to one of my pastors, and he had just finished building his very nice house in Borodale. He was my pastor at that time. I said, Pastor, I want to do an MBA, but I don't have money. He said, yeah, let me pray for you. He prayed for me. A simple prayer. He said, if I can build such a nice house without, and you should be able. And within 3 months, I'd gotten scholarship from UNDP to do my MBA.
Wow.
So I didn't pay a dime. UNDP paid everything. Did my MBA, finished it. God will always send the supplies. So don't worry too much about, I don't have money. I am poor. We are not poor. God's the whole world. He says the earth and those who live in it, they belong to me. The money will come to you, but stay on your purpose, your vision, your dream. That should be your driving force. And God will send, those resources to you, which you are looking for. So be a lifelong learner, and also just be, I'm looking for the word about be a person of integrity. Right. As I found it. Be a person of integrity. It doesn't matter which sector of life, right? If you're a husband, don't mess around and do all those. You just bring trouble on yourself. Many things will just ruin you. If you profess to be a Christian, be a true Christian. If you're a pastor, be a true pastor. Don't fake things and now giving all these false prophecies and what have you to big up your name. What for? I'm a teacher. I'm a pastor at heart, and I run with those things, and God will always do the rest. So those things are critical for your success in life. And of course, it depends if you're a Christian or not. I am a Christian. I depend on Him. I find His heart. I pray. I fellowship with other believers. I try to do as much as I can. Of course, it doesn't mean that I'm faultless or whatever. Like anybody else, I have faults. But, when you're a person of integrity, you make a mistake, you apologize, man. We apologize to our son, our first son, Huda. We used to live in Kwadzana there. We were rough on him. My God. He was our firstborn. So, of course, I'm telling you, we're rough on the guy. And we would get onto these huge trucks because there were even these commuters were not there when we went there in in the 90s. And then I would track him, and we would cross over from the other side. I don't know whether you know where Dairy Board is, Copy side. We would go over that Copy Mountain to the bottom, and then we would walk to Fourth Street because we're taking him there to this kindergarten or creche, as they call it in Zimbabwe. My God, it was not good. Our son went through fire, and we were so tough on him. And when he was a teenager, my wife and I said to his son, please don't develop any bitterness. We did the best of our ability. He took it in good light. He never really thought we were doing something cruel. Of course, we were more refined when we had our second son, our third, and our fourth child. We were more refined and more wanting to give our kids stuff and making their life more comfortable and what have you. And but I'm just saying, to have that heart as a parent, to know that, you know what, you may even mess it up with your kids, and you need to get to a stage of, apologize. I'm not saying be a softie and let this, because some of them are just spoiled brats, especially these days. You pamper them so much that they think they are the only best thing in the whole world, when that is rubbish. You want to be good to them, to encourage them more. One thing which I also learned, which my parents were tough as the nails, and they would never really do this sissy thing. I love you. I know. but we live in a different generation, and we have to be more amicable and amenable and do all those other adjectives. So we also mellowed with time, but we be a family person, because your first field mission is your family. And if your children watch you cheat on your spouse and what have you, some of them are actually going to become that. It's just ingrained in them, I'm not saying, whatever you are is what your children will become, but they will be challenged. Whenever they miss the mark, they'll say, but my dad was not like this. That pulls them back from the brink. So
yeah,
that's
Thank you so much. Wow, this sounds like we're already getting into our next episode, where we want to talk about the leadership and faith. But hey, thank you so much for these insights, these nuggets as far as retirement is concerned. I don't know, in closing, did you have anything else that you wanted to share as far as retirement is concerned?
Just to emphasize, please have a retirement plan. Don't just go out there and say, God will provide. No, come on. God gave you a brain, and an ability to assess and to plan. So you should be able to, you need to plan. God is a God who plans. Look at the creation just in those 7 days, right? In 5 days, he made everything and all the supplies and all the needs of humanity. He created them in 5 days. 6th day, he created humanity. He created Adam and Eve, right? Because he already had the provision. So it's not like he said, let me make men, and then say, what are they going to eat? Oh, Jesus, we forgot to, they are going to starve to death. No. Very methodical, and with a plan. And then he brings man and he gives him a job. Right? The already purpose is set right there. He says, tend the garden. Look after the creation. He gave him the task to name all the animals. And Adam came with all the animals you can think of, and all those species in the water and in the sky and everything. So already the purpose was set there. And then God on the 7th day, he rested. Can you imagine that? Does God need rest? He doesn't like. Do you think his strength and everything else just runs out and he's tired and says, "Oh Jesus, Holy Spirit, let's rest, man. Let's relax. We are tired. We've been working hard for it." No.
Yeah.
But he was doing that to show us that we need to be people who are focused, people who take rest, people who plan, people who execute, people who review, people who consider other people's perspectives and views and build something together. I mean, God is a team. Already we are getting into that. God is a team. Father didn't just say, I'm doing this. He says, let us, not let me. Let us make men. So it's all about teamwork as well. So as you retire, make sure you have all your teams. Don't just be a team at the workplace. Have your life purpose team. In all your people who advise you on career, on what you are good at, people who can speak to truth to power, who can come and rebuke you and say, no, the way you are treating your wife, my friend, this is not good. You have your accountability circle, and they will help you throughout your entire life. Even as you go into retirement, even after retirement, they will tell you, you've got that skill. Have you ever thought of doing this? Why can't you do tours? So many countries. You can come up with travel agents, or you can come up with a scheme of to take people on tour, take people to, I don't know, New Zealand, to Israel, to Zimbabwe ruins, to Zambia, to that can be a business. So there's so many, but you get feedback from others, and then you get to know, oh, I'm good at this. I didn't know I can develop this into that idea. That's what so have community around you, so that you are not lonely, and the old man doesn't have anybody to speak with, and he dies before his age, before his time.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I think on that note, we now also need to rest.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate, and I'm hoping we can speak in the next episode to cover the leadership and faith, where we want to get to understand what's your drive as far as leadership is concerned. We get into your pastoral role in your faith, even as far as your career is concerned. But thank you so much for this. We really appreciate it, and I hope our audience will find this helpful as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed and appreciate your perspectives. You are helping me in so many ways, opening my eyes in many other spaces and places. God bless you. Thank you.
Meaningful carriers now. Take the time to take your destiny in your hands now. With meaningful carriers.